how to WTF and LOL in a really good way. There's been a lot of research into what are the best ways to manage our emotions, both for our health, emotional health, as well as the way we communicate to other people, the way we build relationships and things like that. And one of the things that shows is that when you're in a what's it called a psychologically safe environment, it's really helpful to be able to express your emotions. It doesn't mean that you go on a rampage and smash things to bits or hug everybody without permission, things like that. But what it does mean is being able to say, wow, I'm really happy, or I'm really frustrated, or I'm really sad, or to be able to express it directly.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, with the right friends, you can say WTF or LOL, or express it even more directly, as long as you're not doing it in ways that hurts other people, right? That's the key thing. The interesting piece is they looked at a variety of different methods that people use to manage emotions. And one of the most common methods that people use when they're worried about it is suppression of their emotion, right? So that's the prefrontal cortex, or my model in the book is the thinker part of the brain, which is saying, shh, hey, quiet, don't show that because we're going to get in trouble. Something bad's going to happen. If you are in a situation that is risky to show emotions, then yes, then suppression can be a really helpful tool because you don't want to get beat up or you don't want to get fired or whatever the case might be. But the interesting thing about the research is it shows that when you're suppressing emotion, you're also limiting your ability to remember things. You're limiting your ability to think clearly. You're putting a great deal of energy into stopping that. And the interesting piece is, while it might be better than saying the entire words of WTF in the wrong situation or whatever it might be, people are still picking up that you're suppressing and they become suspicious. Most of that's subconscious. Most times we're not even aware of it. We're just like, that guy gives me the creeps, or she's really, I don't know. I just can't get I don't get a good vibe from her. And a lot of times it's people, or they're fake, right? People get that. The person is fake. They're suppressing. So suppressing emotions can be effective in certain situations when you really need to, but it has all those negative side effects. So that's one thing that's really interesting. And the research shows, matter of fact, part of the reason I chose to take the risk of putting WTF in the title in this case is that swear words that you grow up speaking are the only words in the language that are tied into the limbic system, so that it actually helps you feel like you're expressing more, like you're venting out some of the emotion. It's kind of interesting. There's a fair bit of research about that swearing in the right kind of setting actually is beneficial to the person who's doing the swearing. We're social beings, so how do you express emotions in ways that are helpful to other people and then don't ruin relationships, right? Because that's the key. So it's like, it's balance. And like all of life, you're trying to balance what's good for you, what's good for those around you. If you get too self-centered and just express emotions, you're just going to, you're going to piss people off and you're going to destroy relationships. I was actually at a date one time with a woman, 5-10 minutes in. She knew my middle name because that's what I put on my profile. When I told her my first name was Bob, said, "Oh, I hate that name." And later proudly stated that she believes it's, the right thing to do is to express yourself at all times. So needless to say, she didn't have the opportunity to express herself too much longer with me. So it didn't really work out because I'm thinking, I like self-expression. I also like someone who cares about other people. How do you balance those two? So one of the powerful things they talk about is labeling. Essentially, naming the emotion gives you objectivity about it. So when they put people in a PET scan, when you're able to label it, the amount of actual distress you're feeling drops a bit, far more effectively than suppressing does. So that's why it can be so helpful to express emotions by actually naming them. Wow, I'm really frustrated. I'm really sad. Or this is hard because for a lot of people, that's very vulnerable. If you're in the wrong situation, you don't want to necessarily say that. If you're with the right people, though, that kind of vulnerability can create great attachment and openness and connection. So it's really all these things you have to choose the right time and the right place to use them. So that's labeling is a powerful way to do it. And the most powerful way to manage emotions from the research that I've read, that both helps you learning and helps you with manage your distress better, is what they call reappraisal, or I like to call it reframing. That's a little simpler, right? So that's essentially taking the what you're looking at the world, and you're looking in a maybe from a victim state, you're looking at it from a place of apathy or a place of blame, and you're reframing to be both more realistic and more positive for you. And there's a lot of affirmations out there that are essentially reappraisals. The thing you got to be careful with, the research shows, is over exaggerated affirmations backfire. By often talking too much about assuming you're imagining you're there, gives you a little bit of a feeling that you're already there and less impetus to drive for it.
Imagining that you're already at the destination. Yeah,
it's a fascinating piece. So it's the premise of some books like The Secret or things like that talk about intentions and a vision board. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things. As a matter of fact, they can all be a helpful part of the puzzle, but a lot of people stop there, or they spend too much time there and not enough time saying, what's my next step? What do I need to do? So you need to, matter of fact, one of the most powerful things for behavior change is what they call the if then. If this happens, then I will do this. When then, right? When it's 6 o'clock, I will practice my music. I'm not going to assume. I was on a train next to a woman one time who said she wanted to be a famous singer. And I said, oh, where do you practice singing? She said, I don't. I just know it's going to happen someday. Like, you have to practice and people have to hear you. It can't happen magically. I was trying to say that in a supportive way to her. But unfortunately, that's the challenge when people have a little bit of truth, right? So there's a lot of these positive thinking things, which if they don't understand the science, they actually get people here and then they stop. Whereas you can go a lot higher with more specific and accurate things. So that's where reframing comes in, is being able to say, all right, in the moment, and here's the thing, it's pretty much a given. When you're upset, you're not thinking at your best. We can't help it. When we're angry or upset, our brain activates both the adrenaline, right, ready for fight or flight, and also cortisol, which narrows our focus to focus on the perceived threat. And the more upset we get, the more cortisol, and our thinking eventually becomes very narrow and rigid and not able to think creatively and not learning new information. We may be remembering something starkly, but it may not be what we need, may not be helpful. Because of the cortisol, we're not at our best. So being able to reappraise, to step back, take some deep breaths, go for a walk, exercise, whatever you need to do, calm down, talk to a friend, vent it out, WTF for a while, whatever it is, get to a better place, and then reappraise, or reframe, which is being able to say, all right, I know I feel like because they said no, I felt rejected. I felt like I'm a failure. I'm going to reframe this to say, this is an opportunity for me to learn from. What can I learn from this situation for next time? I might reframe it by saying, even Lincoln lost when he ran for office more than he won, and yet he's arguably the most known president and revered president. Or whatever it is, Einstein didn't start reading until he was late, start talking 2 years later. I mean, there's just all kinds of stories you can remind yourself to think about. Or J.K. Rowling was rejected by, I think, over 10 to 15 publishers before she was finally accepted and became one of the wealthiest authors in history. So it doesn't mean that it will be an Einstein or J.K. Rowling or whatever, but it does mean that I can reframe failure as an experiment. I can reframe it as a way to look at it, to learn. And that's the key thing. So it's not magically thinking, I just want it to happen, but I need to actively reframe information to keep myself moving forward in a grounded way. So that's the cool thing, is that when you're able to name the emotion, you're able to reframe the way you look at it. So it's both more positive and more realistic. Not exaggerated, but more realistic as well. We tend to do much better. We calm ourselves down. We tend to be more confident. And speaking of confidence, one of the most powerful ways to manage emotion is, once you've done that, play back in your mind a memory of the time you were successful, right? I have a whole ton of blog posts on positive priming and videos on that. That's essentially what I'm talking about, is priming your brain by thinking about positive successes that you've had in the past. And that changes the brain chemistry. Cortisol lowers down, the dopamine and endorphin levels go up, confidence. It even changes, like, our body language gets more relaxed, more strong. Our voice might even get a little bit deeper like that, and a little more confident. So it's authentic. Whereas imagining you're already at a success might be helpful to keep you focused. But what really gives you the most confidence is actually building on the momentum you have. It's like putting up a sail to take the wind from the past to help blow you into the future. So your intentions, your goals are your map, your GPS, where you know where you're going. But the wind is often that past successes and focusing on the strengths that you have.